So just to kind of give you a debriefing of the meeting and how it went great. We had various stakeholders. We had church members there that are church pastors within the community. We had parents, we had teachers, we had counselors. We also had a business owner there at our meeting as we were analyzing the district's improvement plan. And again, the focus for the improvement plan was the problem statement that stated in grades level 6 through 8, when compared to the state, gaps were reduced, but gaps remain greater than 5 percentage points for all grades at all performance levels. And so, as they went through the analysis of the problem statement, the root cause, the goals, and the objectives and strategies, they, in some cases, they were saying that for the most part, they were aligned, um, but they lacked specificity. And so when I look at each individual root cause separately, um, the first root cause was inconsistent curriculum, and they said that that was aligned, but it was still no uniformity, even though, as you and I were talking about prior to the meeting session, even though the district has mandated specific curriculum for reading and for math, there's still it still lacks uniformity across the district. So that would be a first step. So the suggestion was on this upcoming improvement plan to put measures in place to ensure that the curriculum is implemented with fidelity, but also maintaining some possibility of teacher autonomy. The next part was focusing on the master schedule and the structure of the schedule. The suggestion was that there's not stated in the plan any checks and balances to ensure the quality of instruction when we are talking about the master schedule. And then the professional development, there was lack of consistency. So the final recommendations for all of it was we came up with some standard of a protocol, and the focus of the standard for the protocol was on professional development, because they felt like if we focused on professional development, that could encompass everything. That could take care of our issue with inconsistent curriculum. That could take care of our situation of the master schedule. That can take care of our situation as far as focusing on teachers and building the capacity of teachers through professional development. So if we focus on professional development, it would take care of, or it could take care of every root cause. And so they proposed that, first of all, that there are incentive goals. They also brought up the fact that years ago, the district used to mandate 21 hours of professional development, which the district kind of says that now, but years ago, there was consequences if you didn't do it. You know,
Hmm.
now they just say you have to do it, but we don't know how consistent everyone is across the district. So they were saying that we should go back to that. Um, and there should be a comprehensive system of ongoing professional development throughout the year, which the district does offer some things, but there's a disconnect between the actual targets, the actual strategies, and uh, the professional development that's offered. first, the district should look at the structure. What do you want um, the consistency in curriculum to look like, first of all?
Mm-hmm.
And so once you analyze and figure out what that consistency looks like, then professional development should follow to ensure that not only are we giving this information, but we are modeling what it looks like, what the curriculum should look like in the classroom. And then we're holding some kind of progress monitoring so we can hold campuses and teachers accountable to what it looked like. They even suggested using artificial intelligence to assist with a rubric for teachers utilizing the see it, name it, do it model so that when executive directors go on their learning walks to campuses, everybody will have the same rubric. Everybody will be assessed using the same standard. Of course, we don't, with the teacher autonomy piece, we don't want the curriculum to be a cookbook, but at the same time, there are certain components of the curriculum that should be expected across the board. So that was the proposal. The
Well,
proposal, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think so. Let me kind of comment on what you mentioned so far. I think the feedback you got about, you're right, thinking like a superintendent outside of a campus or principalship is great. It's kind of ironic that we're having this conversation now, because even this past week, there was a lot of discussion, and I'm going to say that the superintendent did have with executive directors about just staying the course and using our curriculum materials. Um, and then the fact that there has been some test prep that has been seen on campuses. So as a superintendent, he's like, hey, I gave the direction. Why are we not following it 100%? Which kind of goes kind of where you're going, is that the root cause is we do have an inconsistent curriculum. Is there a way to ensure implementation across the board? Right? And what would that look like? What would that sound like? What is the role of the executive directors in that taking place, or even myself as the associate superintendent? To kind of piggyback on that, I've been, ever since that meeting, obviously today's Monday, I've been in campuses today with my eye on, all I'm saying is, am I seeing Amplify? Am I seeing Eureka? And I'm seeing Carnegie.
Okay.
And today wasn't a scheduled visit. So that's the other part. I said, you can show me. I mean, you're there about story. I'm still calling it about story. I know it's a new name, but
no, it's still about story. It's still about story.
Okay. So if I have a planned visit, I know that could be okay. I know they're coming, so here's what we're going to do. But when you just show up, it's like you see the exact same thing.
Right.
Right. So as a superintendent, it's like, hey, I'm going to just show up when I show up, and here's what I expect to see. As a principal, are you leading that? Are you not leading it? Are you following the direction of the district? I want to know how you feel, because you made a comment as far as the curriculum, that yes, we need to implement it across the board, but how can we also maintain teacher autonomy? So just what are your thoughts on that as far as when you're hearing that feedback from your meeting that you had?
My thoughts are, yes, stay the course with the good first instruction. Because and the reason why it's so easy for us to fall back on test prep is because that's the comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there needs to be more professional development, more support as to what good first instruction looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And the expectation of what is and what's not. Because, for example, I'm gonna give you an example. What I told my teachers to do, actually, I hired a consultant to look at Amplify and look at Carnegie, and just take, for example, with Amplify, take those solos and some of those questions. Let's tweak the questions to make them star aligned so that kids can get used to answering questions like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some campuses that may not have done that, and so they're probably having the kids they're interjecting some start questions. In my experience, the kids know the answers. the answers. But if they're not used to a certain way that is asked or a certain structure, then that trips them up as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there needs to be some pieces along the lines of, if the superintendent will get teaching and learning to do what I'm having my consultant to do. Go through
Mm-hmm.
the curriculum and create some star formatted questions that fit the readings. Not all of the questions, but some of them, because
Yeah.
and throughout the year, that will give kids an opportunity to answer questions that are on the that are aligned to start. So, for example, all year long, my data has been great because we have been following how Amplify asks the questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have been doing the solos or the assessments for Carnegie, the assessments for Amplify, and my data have been excellent. So we did a mock assessment.
Mm-hmm.
My data just dropped. And it's not that kids don't know the answers. It's because they're not used to answering questions along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some kind of disconnect between our curriculum and how students are tested. So I feel that the superintendent should lead the effort and say, okay, so yes, we want good first instruction, and to enhance our good first instruction, let's have our teaching and learning department go through this curriculum and integrate some star aligned questions so that kids can, be able to see and answer and respond to the tasks in a whole lot of, different settings or different scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you're talking, I mean, you also mentioned one thing, and it all goes back to, again, so teacher autonomy. And I think that's something, again, as a superintendent, you think about it. How much should you reward or say if you are an A-rated campus, or if you're the top of the, top performing campus, should you have the autonomy to do as you please? Or there are certain practices that we do as a district that are getting us the results. So should the expectation be everyone's using these practices?
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's a balance all the time that the
Right.
superintendent has to kind of figure out. She
And so,
used this term. Are we a school system, or are
right.
we a system of schools?
So the superintendent should mandate, specifically outline what she means and what she expects to see from this curriculum. Period. That way it won't be any confusion around that. And then the rest that she didn't outline, these are the things that you as a campus can have autonomy over. So now, in hindsight, because that wasn't necessarily done, it was stated, okay, yes, I want to see good first instruction, and I don't want to see any star prep. However,
Mm-hmm.
some things is up for interpretation. Some things, like if you go into some of my classrooms and you see some star line questions, you may assume that I'm using a star prep resource,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not the case. I'm using Amplify, but I had my consultant to look at the curriculum and integrate some questions that were star line.
Mm-hmm.
So the I just think that there needs to be it needs to be clearly defined, because I did also get out of a meeting, from my ED, and she was explaining to us as well, about what the superintendent saw, and she doesn't want to see it. Now, if they're just flat out just questions after questions and just teaching to the test, that's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just flat out just using the star resources and in lieu of teaching, that is just completely different. I've that's something that I've never agreed with. You don't
Yeah.
just teaching questions, no, because students are not learning. We want to make
Yeah.
sure students are learning.
Then the other
And
part is,
so,
again, the PD piece is huge too, because I think you mentioned at the end, that's one of the suggestions or recommendations they gave you.
mhm,
Um, if we have the structure like we had it before,
mhm,
right? Here's the PD, here's the protocol, we're going to build capacity. Um, if you rolled it out correctly, then you're right. You could take care of a lot of the things that you just mentioned, whether it
Right,
is training on this curriculum, training on best practices, training on what is, and we have not gone back and forth. I
right.
remember the 21 hours, right? You took the
Mhm.
21 hours. If you took the 21 hours and you had an entire week off for Thanksgiving, if you didn't, then Monday and Tuesday you had to be
Right.
working.
And so those were pretty much it. So overall, what did you think about, the topic and the presentation?
No, I think you did a great job just kind of managing those conversations, getting that feedback. And I think that's the thing, just being open and receptive to the feedback, but also the focus, right? I mean, you
Okay.
stayed focused on root cause of really that inconsistent curriculum. Because I think with this, you could definitely get into where you get too much into the weeds or you try to do too many things.
Right.
So I think it's really, really focused. And even as you kind of went through at the very end, I always say, what is the highest leverage? Everything that we talked about.
Mhm.
And again, you already said it. And I think that's probably your biggest takeaway from my perspective is if we can get that PD correct.
Right.
That's going to take care of probably 90% of the concerns that were mentioned even during the meeting.
Right. Okay.
Right? It's just, but really, so now it's taking that and digging a little bit deeper. What is that? I'm going to call it a scope and sequence for lack of a better word. What is the scope and sequence for our district-wide professional development?
Right. Okay.
Um, and again, and that's the other thing. So what do you mean by that? I mean, there's so many different content areas, so many different grade levels. Do we just focus on at least starting off with reading and math?
Mhm.
Um, in the star areas, third through high school, just reading and math and start in high school. Because again, it sounds like a daunting task. Now you're thinking, now you're doing science, you're doing social studies, you're doing pre-kinder, kinder, first, second, right, third, you go all the way
Right.
through the gauntlet. And it's like, okay, right. See, that project can quickly get overwhelming. I mean, we have
Mhm.
a whole department for professional development. So what should that structure be? What should that scope and sequence be?
Mhm.
And then how do you lay it out for the rest of the year? Now, the other piece is you as a principal saying, okay, that district is doing this, but how do I now embed my principles into this conversation? So now so it's married and not like, well, the district is doing this, I'm doing this.
Mhm.
Uh, so what about those conversations as to ensuring principals understand what the plan is, principals understand the scope and sequence, or better yet, maybe like in this meeting, you had some different people come in and give feedback. Should we do the exact, like take one of these items and say, you know what, we're going to develop this a little bit more. We're going to focus on the PD and building a protocol so we can ensure that we're building capacity.
Mhm.
So, so we're going to have a follow-up meeting just focused on PD, principals, community members, bring your best ideas to see what does that look like. And then start building that together. I think if you build it together with a lot of feedback, then you can definitely have something that could be something useful for the district as a whole to build out that system. And
Okay.
again, and if it gets to daunting, we can just say we're just going to focus on reading this year.
Mhm.
We're going to get reading right. Here's what reading is going to look like. If this rolls out the way we need to, then we can extend it to math.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but I think you did a great job with facilitating the meeting. Just kind of leading. I think you had good energy too, right? You
Okay.
had good energy there, with leading the different groups. Great at building relationships. I know in the beginning you had everybody introduce themselves because you had different people that maybe not have known each other.
Right.
So, um, I would say great job overall. And again, you came up with very clear recommendations and proposals. My feedback on some of those proposals is anytime, the more specific you can make it, the better,
Right. Right.
right? So, and like, again, like we're talking right now with PD, okay, protocol and build capacity. What does that really look like? What is that protocol? Do I have the protocol? Um, which is going to lead to that scope and sequence.
Mhm.
And then at the end, just leave yourself with some good, solid next steps, good, solid actions. Okay, we did this meeting, we had this. So as a result of this, these are the 2 or 3 things I'm going to do as a result of this meeting, and
Okay.
stamp those out. But great job overall.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I actually learned a lot, and then I did notice that my few teachers and my counselor that were there, they focused on the teacher things. I had to
Mhm.
kind of get them to not stay stuck on the teacher things, because they were coming up with things such as additional time for class, well, the class time,
Mm-hmm.
out of time for classes, and then some other things around master scheduling, which were good ideas, but
Yeah.
not necessarily uh root causes,
Mm-hmm.
or some things that could be taken care of in other areas. Um, but the proposal was to, for a master schedule, have a set, which is what the district is doing now this year for middle schools. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's across the board, just mandating a particular schedule for middle schools, and that's it. You know,
Yeah.
because we have to be on a 5 period block.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So some of the things they were saying it did make sense, but it was kind of easy for them to kind of just focus on their area rather than kind of just thinking about holistically the entire problem.
Yeah.
So
Well, great job. What's next for you as far as any assignments that you need to do?
next, I'm going to try. I did talk to Dr. Wigman about this. I am going to try, and hopefully she'll be able to fit me in the schedule to have a meeting with the my regional principals. So
Mm-hmm.
in light of the fact that we're having all these budget cuts and we're having these positions that are being cut, I wanted to focus on um trying to get everybody together, look at our resources and look at what we do have and see how we can come together as a region.
Mm-hmm.
So if I only have one AP and I have one AP that's very skilled in ELAR and you have two APs, or your one AP is very skilled in math, we can get together. We can, put forth an effort to work together so we can have PLCs together since we have the
Mm-hmm.
common master schedule. We can even create DOLs together. So just
Mm-hmm.
trying to see what things can we come to the table and say, hey, so you have this, I have this, and because we have this, we can kind of get together and we can do some things together instead of everybody continuing to be an island unto themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No.
that's what I wanna that's what I want my next one to be. Just a planning session for the principals as well as the ILCs in our region. Even the ILCs can discuss how they will support and come up with
Well,
a.
and again, that's powerful, and that is also, again, putting all the heads together to solve a common problem.
Hmm.
So definitely a good use of time and a relevant topic there to discuss.
Okay.
So
Yes. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I know you're trying to put out fires, and so I'm going to let you go at it. But I appreciate everything that you've done
let
for
me
me.
know.
Time you taking out for me.
Okay, well, let me know if there's anything else you need. Again, or if you need me to connect you with some other people, I'll be glad to
Have some people that
continue to do that.
I do need to interview, and I'm gonna send you an email, um, letting you know I need to interview somebody, the chief of finance and things like that. But it's about 3 different people I need to interview. So
Okay,
okay,
let me know. Thank you.
all right, thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye bye.